Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Ready to transform your business? Today, Satish Subramanian can help us. Satish, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Bill.
Satish, can you explain to us what is transformational change to a business? What does that mean?
Bill, transformational change equates to innovation. It's a step change. It's a radical change. It's a quantum improvement in business performance. Those would be what I characterize as transformational change, which would really take a company to the next level altogether, into the next orbit, so to speak.
How does a business actually come to a decision that they're going to make a change like this? Who makes it? What is the process that goes on, I guess, in the back rooms before we even see it?
Very good question, Bill. Specifically, business transformation, organizational transformation, the drivers are predominantly external business drivers. It's an outside-in perspective, Bill. What's the competition doing? What's the regulatory environment like? What is it that customers are craving for? So these kind of business drivers force a company to really shake things up, and see what they need to be doing different to cater to the constantly changing dynamic environment. For them to be successful, for them to really dominate the market, like some of the top tier companies do. So those result in the senior leadership within a company. It could be top down or it could be bottom up, which indicate to an organization they have to embark on a transformation initiative, either to survive in the marketplace or to really dominate the marketplace.
When someone decides, and let's just pretend they do this January 1st, the CEO says, I'm seeing that the competition is beating us, whether it's McDonald's versus Burger King versus Wendy's or whatever. Is that something she does in the next week, or do they start planning it in the back rooms for 3 months before it's put out to the workers and when I say the workers, the higher officers of the company?
No, actually, the way it depends on the level of burning platform. And in the book, Bill, I take a very pragmatic approach to this, where you really don't want to be in a analysis paralysis or in an ivory tower kind of a vacuum kind of mode. As soon as the core leadership team, so if the CEO has got multiple executives reporting into him or her, as soon as there is enough writing on the wall that something has to be done, it's something that my recommendation where they kind of launch into it relatively quickly. To the extent, if they need to do a quick survey to validate the same, they could do that. But I think the key thing is to make sure that there is buy-in, not just at the CEO level, but in terms of the other senior executives, because they would really be involved in driving the transformation through.
Now, I think in your book you mentioned that there are 6 critical dimensions needed to transform a business. Can you talk about what those are?
Yeah, definitely, Bill. And I think this is a secret sauce. To be honest with you, this is a secret sauce as to why so many business transformation programs, don't deliver or they don't succeed. And the reason is that all the 6 dimensions are not addressed by them as they embark on such a program. The first one is strategy. So where are we heading? What's our goal? What are our business objectives? So that has to be grounded upfront. So that's the strategy dimension. The second important dimension is the people itself. Do we have the people, the right abilities, the right skill set, who are willing to embrace adapt, to change. And so those has to be factored in, the people dimension. Increasingly, I see companies where they jump an automation route. They want to automate something, but they don't look at cross-functional business processes. So the third dimension is the importance to look at the process, particularly across different functions. So that's the third dimension. The fourth one, needless to say, Bill, technology, whether it's, cloud computing, whether it's globalization, technology is constantly changing the dynamic landscape, digitization. So it's important to factor whatever is going on in that fourth dimension of technology. Fifth one is about structure. And what I mean by structure is really the governance, roles, responsibilities, accountability. Should we manufacture something in the U.S. or should we offshore it? Is it better to centralize, decentralize? Very important decisions. If the structure dimension is not factored in, it can be a recipe for disaster. And the last one, which unfortunately tends to be forgotten a lot, Bill, is the importance of measurement. What is success? How are we going to measure success? And success for me translates into business value. So it's necessary to factor in the measurement dimension. So those are the 6 dimensions that my book talks about, and it's very critical on any transformation program to have all those baked in right off the gate.
So I'm just going to summarize for our audience: strategy, people, process, technology, structure, and measurement. Am I correct?
No, that's absolutely right, and that's kind of the tagline for the book itself.
And Satish, I'd like to mention to our audience, sometime people tune in a little later, that today we're talking with Satish Subramanian. His book is Transforming Business with Program Management. And I'll spell Satish's last name, Subramanian. And Satish, where is this book available?
Bill, the book is available on all major online stores. You can get the hardcover book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. The publisher is, CRC Press and Taylor & Francis. You could get it on their websites. The book also is very much available in an e-book platform, and that's available on Amazon Kindle, on Google Play, as well as, Barnes & Noble Nook.
And again, for our audience, the book is titled Transforming Business with Program Management. Now, again, for our audience, Satish, how would you define program management?
Program management is it's really about integrating multiple facets. Multiple dimensions have to be looked at when you're defining a problem, when you're solving a problem. So program management is about looking at it holistically. In the project management world, typically, Bill, a project is very focused, very specific. It's small scale. Multiple projects constitute a program. So that's typically what a program is. And program management is about execution. It is really about executing business strategy. So a strategy is there, but now to execute the business strategy, program management is a vehicle to execute that strategy.
Now, Satish, how does a business, this always struck me as something very hard. Let's say the CEO, I guess that's who would do it, or bringing it down to the ranks, decides certain things are going to be changed. Maybe McDonald's is going to start selling healthier sandwiches and more salads and, different products, getting away from the typical hamburger. How do you get your staff workers to buy into this? Maybe most of them say, well, we've been doing it for years. It was good enough. Why isn't it good enough? How do they get the employees to buy in and support the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important point that you're raising, Bill, and that caters to the people dimension of a transformation. You, I, anyone else, the rank and file, I mean, they are not going to embrace, something just because it came from the top. for an organization to change and to get buy-in, first, what's in it for me? What's in it if I'm belonging to a certain function? I'm in the manufacturing, I'm in distribution, I'm in R&D, whatever it might be, right? What's the impact to that function? Why do I care? And once we address it at that level and show it in terms of the benefit to that individual, to that team, through examples, also create some success stories pretty early on, because transformation change it's a journey and it can take a lot of time. But if we can deliver some quick wins and show them the benefit, that's one of the key ways of getting buy-in. Also, it's very important to constantly communicate to the troops, the progress, why we are on this mission, what's the benefit, what's the value, and, just continuously repeating, reinforcing, giving examples are common techniques to not only get buy-in in the first place, but also continue to ensure that buy-in continues. Does that make sense?
It does, and I guess that's just good business. The more people keep the workers informed, the happier they are, the more they're part of the organization, and I certainly would buy in more if I'm informed. So I agree with you 100% there. Satish, can you give us an example of some company that we might all know that went through this, and how we would see it from our side as opposed from the company from the inside?
Oh, sure. I mean, definitely a couple of companies come to mind. So one of them would be like a highly integrated U.S.-based, healthcare organization, a pretty dominant player in the U.S. market. And they had a major hole in their product portfolio. For them, a product is a health plan product. So as the healthcare landscape is changing, through healthcare reform and other drivers, it was very important for them to launch into a self-funding type of product line, which they did not have, because predominantly their success to fame was through the traditional HMO product line. So that was an area where they had to do some product innovation, and so they embarked on that journey. It's a national organization with multiple regions, so they kind of architected the product. They did competitive research, found out how their product could be strategically different in the marketplace, and then they really applied the roadmap. I talk about a 10-step process of how companies transform. So this is an example of an organization, which went through that, 10-step process to, architect, envision the product, develop it, come up with a pricing plan, roll it out so that employers, which is really the groups that buy the insurance from the healthcare organization, are aware of it. They sign up for that. And then you and I, if we work for companies, then it's part of our health plan where you could potentially choose that. So that was the actual implementation part. So let me take a pause. If that example resonates with you, Bill, it might be beneficial for me to just, talk about the 10-step process. But let me take a pause.
Satish, we do want to go through that. The only thing I'm going to ask you to hold that till the second part, because right at this point in the show, we like to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. If you'd like to receive a free digital copy of today's show, you can go to itunes.ncc.edu. The show is produced at WHPC 90.3 FM at Nassau Community College. We'll be right back after this brief intermission.
Hi, we want to tell you about a program with real appeal. There is a high-quality, low-cost paralegal studies program right here at Nassau Community College.
It can be your major while earning your associate's degree.
Or taken as a certificate program if you already have a 2- or 4-year college degree.
It can be the start of your legal career or a great second career.
It is also a great credential in the business world.
Many of our paralegal graduates go on to 4-year colleges and even law school.
You can complete the certificate program in several months. Paralegals work in private law firms, government, and corporations on Long Island and New York City.
You can start in the summer, fall, and winter, attend full or part-time, days, nights, or weekends.
Our tuition is low and the program is approved by the American Bar Association.
For more information, contact the Paralegal Program at 516-572-7774 or email us at paralegal@ncc.edu.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Satish Subramanian, author of Transforming Business with Program Management. Satish, I'm sorry, before the break I had to cut you off, but I think you were just about to tell us about the roadmap for going through a transformation. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. And just to pick up on that example that we talked about pertaining to the healthcare organization, and so this transformation initiative was developing a new product. And so the roadmap that I talk about in the book, which this organization used and then many others have very successfully used, is as follows. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as I can, Bill. So I'm going to use some key words on this 10-step process. First is problem definition. So in this example, we talked about a gap in the product portfolio. So that's defining the problem, making sure everyone is aligned on the problem. Second is vision. So what are the strategic objectives associated with, getting that gap closed? So what's our vision? So articulating the vision and objective. Very important about getting cross-functional executive level sponsorship. So in this organization, there are different groups. There is the product group, there is the claims group, there is the membership group, there is the technology group. At the end of the day, to really make it happen, all the groups have to embark and there has to be sponsorship. Governance. I talked about this in the context of a large enterprise with multiple regions. So what's the governance model? What's the role of the corporate versus the role of the region? Who is doing what? What's the decision-making approach? What's the escalation path? So those are all part of governance steps. Fifth one is outcomes. And at the end of the day, collectively, how are we going to measure success? So we need to define success. We need to also come up with the metrics that we would be using. And that success could be measured in terms of marketplace, how the market is going to view it, how the customer is going to view it, as well as internally, how are we going to view it as a success. So that's the outcome. The sixth one is approach. Approach is really about investing in planning. There's always a tendency to just start executing. It's very important to invest some upfront time in planning and coming up with a holistic approach for the transformation journey. So that's the approach piece as part of the roadmap. Bill and I just talked about buy-in. So you get buy-in through engagement. So driving, getting everyone engaged. So that's another important step of the roadmap. I can't emphasize this as much. This is leadership, which is the next dimension. And for transformation program to be successful, there has to be leadership at all levels, not just at the senior most level, because usually a very large team is involved in making transformation happen. So there has to be leadership at the senior level, middle management level, at the team level. There has to be rigor in the execution. We talked about what is program management, but at the same time, as program is getting executed, it has to be aggressively monitored. So that's the second last step of the roadmap. And then the last one is for this to make it happen on a day-to-day basis, operations function has to be trained, ready to make it as part and parcel of business on a day-to-day basis. So that's the transition to the operations function. So that's the 10 process roadmap, Bill. I know I had to rattle through it a little bit fast. We can dive into anyone in particular if you want, but I hope that helps.
Definitely. And Satish, I just want to repeat it for our audience. It's define the problem, have a vision, sponsorship, which is cross-functional among the different areas, governance, outcomes, approach, engagement, leadership, monitor, of course, what you're doing, and the transition. To our audience, Satish gives us literally a roadmap here, and you can see this is not something you can just do off the seat of your pants, because if you do, it's not going to work, and it's like trying to take a vacation without a roadmap. You're going to get lost very quickly. Satish, once again, I'd like to tell our audience, the book is called Transforming Business with Program Management. It's by our guest, Satish Subramanian, and that's spelled Subramian. And Satish, where is this book available?
The book is available hardcover on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, CRC Press. Ebook version is available also online. Kindle version is available on Amazon.com. The Google Play version is available on the Android platform.
And anyone in business, if you are engaged in program management and transforming a business, it's certainly a lot easier if you have that map in hand. It's certainly a lot easier if you have someone like Satish on your side who's already done the heavy lifting. He's just putting it in order. Now it's just really stocking the shelves for you by going out, following his map, and doing things in the correct order. Satish, I was very impressed with the first step here because it says describe the problem accurately. Now, I guess most of us would think that's not a problem in itself, but since that's step one, it must be. Am I correct?
No, it definitely, and all statistics have shown over the last decade, Bill, that only 1/3 of the transformation programs ultimately achieve the intended business results or benefits. So we really have an uphill challenge where, holistically, we haven't really gotten the outcome that we would expect. And organizations have spent billions and billions of, dollars, etc., to derive those. And many times it's back to whether the business problem was framed right. Was it, properly identified, validated? And I talk about a couple of techniques in the book, which is, environment scanning is a technique. Voice of the customer is another technique, where pretty early on, quickly, one has to hone in on what's the business problem from a strategic perspective, break it down into tactical terms if needed, but take the time to do that, and that really sets up the rest of the roadmap and ensures that you're working on the right problem.
And I think that's so important because obviously it's like any good map. If you start out in the wrong direction, if you're going to Florida but you're heading north, you're going to wind up in Maine or someplace in Canada rather than the direction you're going. And I guess sometimes we find out that what we thought was the problem may not be. It might be something else. Would that be correct?
No, that's definitely true. And that's why it's not an exercise where you shortchange it, Bill. You kind of go through the initial analysis, make sure you framed it up right. But technology is constantly changing. Competitors are constantly changing their strategy and direction. So it's one of those things, where the approach has to make sure that you're constantly kind of, validating it and making some continuous refinement to the problem and make sure that your approach is factoring those in as and when needed.
You mentioned a couple of techniques, and I think you said, was it environment scanning? Is that correct?
Yeah, that was one of the two I just mentioned was something that one would use to make sure that you defined the problem and you got buy-in from everyone on the problem. That's right.
And when you say the voice of the customer, what is that? Take us through that technique.
Yeah, I'll give another example. This is pertaining to a very large financial institution, a major, global credit card organization, where, their customers are actually the banks, and they brand their credit card, right? So we're talking about companies like MasterCard, Visa, Discover in that league, right?
Correct.
So one of these financial institutions, I had the opportunity to work with them over a period of time, to really kind of understand how they can improve their value proposition so that more corporate customers can use the corporate card for purchases and for all kinds of business purpose purchases. So a large company with 200,000 employees, if they give that corporate card to 50% of the employee population, it's a big benefit for the credit card company. So that's a big part of their customer segment, which is the commercial market segment. So in this particular case, this credit card company, to drive deeper into the commercial credit card space, they invited their top 10 commercial customers to their facilities, conducted a series of focus groups to really kind of understand from their perspective what are their challenges, what are the pain points, what is it their solution, their product offer or doesn't offer, which is really preventing its usage or its adoption or its purchase by the company. So they did this a series of focus groups, and ultimately it was a voice of the customer, and all the findings were then kind of rationalized, prioritized, so that you could have a roadmap on which are the top 5 strategic pain points, and then the organization embarked on framing up a transformation program to address those pain points.
Satish, we want to thank you. Unfortunately, the time goes much too quickly. You have a very interesting subject and one so important to a business, but your book, Transforming Business with Program Management, by our guest Satish Subramanian, Subramanian, certainly lays it out and makes it as easy as possible for us. I want to thank you for your time today, for helping us get through this difficult subject. Thanks so much, Satish.
Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome. To our audience, we'd like to remind you that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success. If you'd like to receive a free digital copy, you can go to itunes.ncc.edu. This program is produced at the studios of WHPC 90.3 FM at Nassau Community College. We ask you to please join us again next week at the same time when we'll continue our journey to success.